Good afternoon to you. 5:06 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears is with us as Joe Biden lies to a black audience in some of the most vile ways, in the most Biden-esque of ways. She'll react to that. And you can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. We are awaiting President Trump's daily remarks, his ritual now, outside of the courthouse in New York as the today's proceedings have wrapped. Attorney Bob Costello has been on the stand for the defense, and fireworks in that courtroom because he's got a lot of really tough things to say about Michael Cohen's credibility. And the prosecution has been raising all sorts of objections, saying, no, you can't, don't go there. You can't go there. And the judge has been sustaining those objections and helping out the prosecution to try and prevent Costello from saying meaningful things. Costello has been apparently muttering and saying some remarks under his breath, rolling his eyes. And, the judge has not been happy about that. The judge threw everybody out of the courtroom, scolded Costello at one point. Are you staring me down right now? He says to Costello. So it's a real shame we don't get to hear or see any of this. We have to rely on the people who are in the room to filter it out to us. But it is apparently dramatic. It has been today. President Trump is expected to speak imminently. If and when he does, we will share it with you right here on WMAL. He did bring an entourage with him today, as has been the case in recent days, including I saw Kash Patel there, among others. There was the New York Times was beside itself today over the fact that a leader of the Hells Angels is there on behalf of Trump. The motorcycle gang, Chuck Zito, is there, who founded the New York chapter of the Hells Angels, known as the Nomads, back in the early 1980s. This is how the New York Times reports it today. They're all upset about this. The Hells Angels, what are they doing here? An entourage of more than a dozen supporters who joined President Donald J. Trump in a Manhattan courthouse on Monday included a former president of an outlaw motorcycle gang in New York City who spent years in prison on drug charges, they say. I love how the left is now attacking people who have had drug charges so long as they're associated with Donald Trump. If you have drug charges otherwise, no judgment from the left. Drug charges are totally fine. Chuck Zito there today to support the president, and they're grumpy about it. The man Chuck Zito helped found in the early 1980s the New York Nomads chapter of the Hells Angels, the infamous club that started in California. All right, I'll take a pause here because here comes President Trump.
Was he staring down the judge? So thank you very much. You saw what we saw. That was an incredible display. I've never seen anything like it in my life. A tyrant. And everyone's talking about it. This is what we have. We have an acting judge, appointed judge by Democrats, by the club. And they're keeping now, I guess this is our fourth week, soon to be our fifth week. Not campaigning, but you saw what happened, what just took place in that court. And hopefully the motion to dismiss this trial will go through, because this trial is a disaster for our country. It's a disaster for New York State, New York City. Greg Jarrett just says, where exactly is the crime? To quote a memorable line from Shakespeare in Love, I don't know, it's a mystery. There is just no crime. Andy McCarthy, if it's unconstitutional for Texas to enforce federal immigration law, how is it constitutional for New York to enforce federal election law? They're going by federal law. It's never happened before. Nobody's ever seen anything like this. This is a witch hunt. This is a witch hunt. This is to damage crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country, by far, to damage his political opponent. That's all this is. A highly political judge, a totally conflicted judge, who just did something that nobody's ever seen. And the press is not happy, I don't imagine. They just got thrown out of a courthouse. Nobody's ever seen anything quite like it. These things are consistent. Bragg has no authority to enforce election law. And we did nothing wrong. Ted Cruz has said it's over 200 years. Never once has a president of the United States been indicted over no crime. No crime. Molly Hemingway, very smart woman. This is a show trial. There is no actual crime or evidence. Molly Hemingway, respected by everybody, by the way. Here's a very liberal gentleman, but a very talented one, critically acclaimed director, Oliver Stone. Haven't heard his name mentioned in a while. It's a new form of warfare. It's called lawfare, and that's what they're using against Trump. That's Oliver Stone, who I think is a super liberal, but even he's talking. I must tell you, I've never had such liberal, or as they say nowadays, progressive support. Mark Levin, you're living through what is not only the worst presidency in American history, that's Biden, when it comes to domestic and foreign affairs, but when it comes to our Constitution, the rule of law, law and order, which is the core to this republic, Biden is dismantling it, and he's destroying it. I don't even know if it's him. I think it's the people around his desk, that beautiful, beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office. It's a horrible thing. The country's never been in this position. We're doing badly in so many different ways, and we're falling apart, and we're not respected in the world anymore. They're looking at us and saying, hey, they're no different than we are. Bad countries are saying that. They're saying that the United States is no different than we are. Gavin Wax, the globalist elite, severely miscalculated by declaring war on Trump. I guess he's referring to the fact that the polls are through the roof, but I'm not even talking about that. And the polls are the highest they've ever been. Andrew and Katie Cherkasky, who are terrific lawyers, as everyone knows, it's past time for Judge Bichon to dismiss this case. Trump's business records, there's no false entry. By the way, they paid a legal expense and they marked it legal expense. And I say it every day. They could have said construction. They could have said this is for construction purposes. This is for some other purposes. You're building a building. They say building expense. They called legal fees, which is legal expense. They called it legal expense. They paid a lawyer money, legal expense. And in the lawyer's bill, he talks about retainer. It's a retainer. He calls it a retainer. Former Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker, the prosecution has presented absolutely no evidence of a crime. David Catron, the American Spectator, good people over there. Judge Merchan's animosity toward Trump and his inability to ensure a fair trial is not lost on the voters. Never seen anything like it. And this goes on and on. Ross Duhat, New York Times. I would defy anyone to summarize the underlying situation in which a presidential candidate could be sent to prison for a misdemeanor offense, very small, but there's not even a misdemeanor. For a misdemeanor offense elevated by a second crime for which he isn't even being charged. I'm not even being charged for it. They didn't know what to charge him. They haven't even charged me with the crime. You know what the crime is? I beat Hillary Clinton. That's what the crime is. And they don't want me to beat, on behalf of, I think, 200 million people, they don't want me to beat Biden. Okay? But it's a shame. This is what they've done. And just to finish out, without the description coming across as somewhat Kafkaesque, the CNN panel just came out. This is significant. There is no direct link to Trump in this alleged conspiracy. That's from CNN. Laura Coates of CNN, not a fan of mine as I understand it, possibly fatally undermines the prosecution's case. This is a disaster. What she said here undermines the prosecution's case. This case should be dropped by the judge. I think the judge, if he did that, could gain the respect back. We have to, either the appellate court has to step in, something has to happen. Think of it, the Republican Party, one of the two great parties, nominate somebody to be their candidate, and that candidate now has been sitting here for almost 5 weeks in a freezing cold icebox, listening to this stuff, no crime. Ellie Honig of CNN, the crux of the case is Trump knew this and that. Let's see, he says some statement down here. Trump didn't know. He never would have agreed to be robbed by Cohen. He absolutely didn't know. This is a bomb being dropped on the prosecution's case. This is cruising to prosecution credibility. I'll tell you what, New York State is being hurt so badly by this, and they're watching all over the world, and businesses are going to be leaving the state. They already are, unfortunately, but they're going to be leaving because they can't be subject to this. This and Gorin and Kaplan, other judges that have just created a horrible scar on our Constitution. Hopefully the appellate courts will take care of it. But this did not ask Cohen about that or on direct, and this is Ellie Honig, have not made him plead guilty to larceny because you know what's taking place. I mean, you saw that. I won't even mention it because remember, I have a gag order. I'm not supposed to be talking about certain things. And so I'm being very careful, but you saw what happened. And this is CNN mentioning it, which it is, larceny, which it is. And you know what they're talking about because there was an admittance. The money I won't say that. It's the money so I won't say that. In fact, you're going to have to get this one because I can't read it. I've been gagged from reading this. But it's a vicious statement by a respected person at CNN, Ellie Honig. So you'll have to read that one yourself because I've been gagged. Let's see, it turns out now that Trump was, yeah, that's right. You can read that. I can't read it because I'm not allowed to say it. A CNN legal commentator. The prosecutor misled this jury. So there is a case to be made because 5 people have stated...
Trump is having a lot of difficulty here because he's trying to talk about the big news of the day, that Michael Cohen stole $60,000 from him, but he's gagged from talking about Cohen or his testimony.
Because he knew when he submitted his case all about the lies, and therefore he's committed a crime. Many people have said that they should turn this around. He knew that this was a fake case. He knew that the lies are all over the place. We're not just talking about a small amount. Also, you have to go get the Southern District's about a 28-page book on lies, which the judge wouldn't allow. And by the way, the judge wouldn't allow that. The Southern District, highly respected, a book of 28 pages, I believe, or more, of lies. We're not allowed to put it in. The expert witness that we have, the best there is in election law, Brad Smith, he's considered the Rolls-Royce, or we'll bring it back to an American car, Cadillac. But the best there is. He can't testify, not being allowed to testify.
Yeah.
And you saw what happened to a highly respected lawyer today, Bob Costello. Wow.
Yeah, so that was this morning. The judge really hemming in the ability of Trump's team to mount a defense on what is federal election law. They wanted to bring in this expert to talk about how you actually break federal election law. And the judge said, "I'll explain the law to the jury," and he got in the way of the Trump team yet again mounting a real defense. The judge is constantly running interference here on behalf of the left and Joe Biden. And he's a Biden donor, so it stands to reason.
Kim Parlatore, who's a very good lawyer, CNN commentator. It's not only goes to the credibility, it also goes to Alvin Bragg's office's credibility. How did they not get this out ahead of time? Why didn't they? That's what everyone's asking now. How did they put something like this out? And then he goes on to things I'm not allowed to talk about. Can you believe it? Here I am, vice presidential. We have 15 people that I'm supposed to be meeting about who's going to be our vice president. But I'm stuck in the refrigerator all day. The presidential nominee, I'm down here by an acting judge. He's acting. And you know who appointed him? Democrats in a clubhouse. But hopefully, I tell you, for the good, and I hope the governor steps forward and the mayor steps.
By the way, is Trump making some news there when he says that there are meetings going on right now about who the vice presidential nominee should be, but I'm held up here in court? It does suggest that they are very near an announcement on that subject.
Forward, because you can't go. And it's like we have an armed camp outside. I mean, if you're a civilian, you can't get within 3 blocks of this courthouse. All you have is police. And they're in blue, and they look good to me, but I'll tell you what, you don't see any civilians outside. I never saw so many iron gates as I've seen the last 5 weeks. Andy McCarthy, to show he stole from the Trump organization, even as they're structuring a deal, blah, 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 and now I can't talk about it because, again, I have a gag order. So I think the case is going very well. We've asked for termination of the case. This case should be terminated. This shouldn't go anywhere. It should be terminated right now. And New York State has to build up its system again. New York State can't let this happen. Can't let this happen. There were no crimes. We did nothing wrong. And I want to get back to campaigning. I'm representing millions and millions, hundreds of millions of people. In the meantime, Russia and China are now good friends. They want to take over the world. Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. And that's not going to be an easy situation when they have it. North Korea is getting frisky, and I get along with him very well, but the current administration, they don't even know his name. We have a lot of things to solve. Inflation's hitting new highs. You see that? They're hitting new highs. I should be out campaigning so we can turn the country around. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Are you trying to testify?
There he is. Walking away now. President Trump with his remarks after the court proceedings today. As usual, back tomorrow. We will bring you the news as it happens, as we always do here on WMAL. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears up next. We talked to her about Joe Biden's awful, divisive speech at a historically black college yesterday. She'll react. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 5:35 now, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Joe Biden gave a series of speeches to black audiences yesterday, one of them in the morning to Morehouse College in Georgia. It was the commencement address, and he framed the United States as a hateful place that does not love black Americans. In fact, he said that out loud. Take a listen.
Most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure?
He also claimed black men are being killed in the street, that black Americans have to work 10 times harder to succeed than everybody else, and that's all a product of the racism in America. Here to discuss this, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Madam Lieutenant Governor, good to have you back with us. Thank you.
Oh, so glad to be back, Vince. You know, this was also the same man who talked about the hairy legs that he had when he was a lifeguard in a predominantly black pool, and how he called them the golden hairs would lay down and the kids would, you know, rub them down and watch them raise back up again. I mean, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. We're so sick as black people of the constant putting down, trying to dumb us down. Come talk to us about the issues. Talk about your economic policies and what you're going to do. Talk to us about your trade policies. Talk to us about how you're going to keep us safe. Talk to us about what's happening on the international scene. For heaven's sake, talk to us about what you're doing at the border, because, you know, Vince, the people of Texas have spent about, 12 billion with a B dollars of their own taxpayers' money, not federal money, to protect themselves. And by the way, the border of Texas that it has with Mexico stretches, you might as well say it's as long as from Atlanta to Portland, Maine. Mm-hmm. That's how long it is. And the people have had to do that by themselves while the President Biden told us that, well, there, a border is secure, a border is secure. Did I tell you a border is secure? So black people aren't buying it anymore. And enough of us have begun to look at so many things. And that's why you see some of the indifference to what he's been saying, Biden has been saying. And you heard the lukewarm applause. It's
Yes.
like, wait a minute, am I supposed to clap now? Or, is that something that's clappable? It's pathetic.
I noticed that there were members of that commencement audience, graduates of Morehouse, who were protesting President Biden, turning their backs on him, some remaining seated rather than standing to honor him. And he did lie relentlessly during that speech. As I mentioned, he claimed that black people are being killed in the streets in America, implying that was at the hands of cops. He used the George Floyd death as a way to springboard. And when, in fact, according to the Washington Post, unarmed black people, just 16 were shot by cops last year. Just 16. So far this year, 3. Additionally, he said that Morehouse College graduates have to work 10 times harder than the rest of the population. But we pulled the salary data. The average college graduate starts at a job of $68,000. The average Morehouse graduate, $77,000. In other words, they have a 12% advantage coming out of Morehouse. Why does he keep lying? And do you think that black voters are recognizing that he is lying?
Of course. And you see, well, for Democrats to win, they need at least 90% of the black vote. Now, this is why the Democrats push so hard against Republicans, because if you have a business, Vince, and 90% of any one of your customers that comes from one company, you're dead. Because if they ever make a different decision and go to your competitor, you don't have any place to go. Your income is gone. And so that's why you hear some of the lies that they say. You hear the president lie. You hear others of them lie. And the worst thing is not police and black on crime. It's black on black crime. We need to fix that. We are killing each other. And then when you have a 6-year-old black child down in Newport News area say, I killed that bee dead. That's not a gun problem, Vince. There's something else going on. And by the way, from what I understand, the parent of that child had that gun legally. So we've got issues, and we don't need leaders who lie to us. We don't need leaders who continually divide us. We need, when you come to the black community, as we say on the street, come to us correct. Come to us with respect. Come and talk to us about policy. Don't come to us with this nonsense racism, and more racism. Our children are not learning. Our children are years behind, and we need somebody with a solution, President Biden. We don't need you coming to our graduation of these young black men who are on the cusp of success and telling us that they're being killed in the streets, that they don't have a prayer, that they don't have a future with Republicans. My God, I'm a Republican. I'm black. My husband is black. My children are black. My grandchildren are black. What do they think? We're idiots? So that's why you see, as I said, there is an apathy against him, and that's why he's trying so hard. And what he ought to do is stick to the issues and don't think we're dumb. Stick to the issues. That's what he needs to do. I mean, in 2012, I was checking him out again. President Biden in 2012, when he came to Danville, Virginia. See, I'm going to show you he hasn't learned anything. Came to Danville, Virginia, talked to a predominantly black audience. And instead of sticking with the issues of economic development, which is what Danville needed and still needs, he says to them, they, meaning Republicans, gonna put y'all back in chains. What? You're the president of the United States. What is a gonna put y'all back in chains? Is that the way you think black people speak? And even if you do think we speak that way, why would you come to us that way? You don't go to your white constituency and speak that way. So this is what I'm saying. People are waking up, and enough of us are waking up and saying, we're not playing the same old, same old. We need you to come and talk policy.
Yeah.
not racism.
He's got a long history, and some of which you've laid out, of doing this very thing, including at one point indicating if you don't support him, he said, quote, "You ain't black. You ain't black," suggesting that there was some sort of black litmus test by whether or not you support Biden. It's in my view, explicitly racist. I don't really know how to get around that, Lieutenant Governor.
You know, if we could figure him out, you know, I don't even begin to try to understand him anymore. And I don't think he understands himself anymore. So what we need to do is understand this much. Joe got to go. Since that's the way he's speaking, well, let's follow his lead. Joe, you got to go.
So the alternative, of course, is his Republican opponent, who's trapped in a courtroom yet again today in New York. That's Donald Trump. And as you mentioned, go ahead.
Even black men, they understand that they were doing much better under President Trump than right now. I go to the pump. I go to the gas pump, and Vince, I'm arguing with the pump about how high gas is. When President Biden is the reason why gas is as high as it is, because the very first thing he did, day one, after his inauguration, was sign the executive order killing the Keystone Pipeline. There were at least 8,000 union jobs gone, bam, with that stroke of a pen, and it's not been the same since. So we were energy independent, and now we're not. So things need to change.
Yeah, for
sure.
The
economy is not what it needs to be.
And we've seen some surveys, especially among black men, that nearly 30% of them are now supporting Donald Trump for president of the United States. President Trump, as far as Republicans go, reaching unprecedented levels of support, certainly this century, which is an interesting phenomenon. And I want to ask you about your views of President Trump now, Lieutenant Governor, because it was just a couple years ago, I think, ahead of the primary process, that you thought it would be a good idea. I think your phrase was to move on from Trump. How do you feel about him now? Were you right in that assessment, or maybe wrong in that assessment in the past? And how enthusiastic are you about seeing him return to the Oval Office?
Well, what I'm thinking is Joe's got to go. Whatever form that takes, Joe's got to go. I can't vote for President Biden. You know, all the statements that he's made in the past, he doesn't really respect black people. I don't see how. He keeps saying the same stupid thing, and I'm just done with him. Well, not that I was ever going to support him anyway, but still, I mean, he has not improved, and when his poll numbers go low, he goes low. Yes. He goes low, and he goes to the very base of the base, and what he wants to say is, vote for me because I'm Democrat, you're black. We need him, for example, if you're going to talk about black, you need to go to VSU, Virginia State University, our only other land-grant university, which was created, wait for it, by Republicans, so that black people would have an education. Hence, Morehouse College, where you, Mr. President, just told these black men they don't have a future. And so we just need to move on from him. Really, we do.
Well, and also as far as Virginia State University goes, you've got that was supposed to host one of these presidential debates. Biden has upended that by saying, I'm not doing the Commission on Presidential Debates. And you saw President Trump just this past week suggest, how about this? Whoever my vice presidential nominee is, I'm going to announce it soon, that VP debate should take place at Virginia State University. Do you agree with that?
Of course I agree with that. We want to highlight Virginia State University. As I said, it's our only other. There are two of them, Tech and VSU. And there are 5 HBCU, historically black colleges and universities in Virginia. We want to highlight at least one of them. And they were promised this. And if the Democrats say that they love black people more than everybody else, then show your love, as we say. Come to VSU. You have that power, President Biden. You can change things. You have the power. Make it so.
Right. So Kamala Harris should do the VSU debate, you think, to prove that she loves black people.
Well, see, this is what happens when they play these stupid skin games.
Yes.
We never learn And they think that we're just going to, pee cluck buck, as my grandmother used to say, behind whoever it is like geese. We're not geese. We think for ourselves. And if black, if a black person wishes to vote for a Democrat, okay, fine. But if they also want to vote for a Republican or whoever else, that's fine too. But you don't define me being black by how I vote. I vote the way that I want to vote. Everybody else can do that except black people? No. Go back and tell whoever told you that we're black and we're supposed to be Democrat. It may rhyme, but we're not going that path any longer. We're thinking. We're not going to be forced into fearing. See, this is where the Democrats go. They want black people to fear. Pity the leader. Pity the leader that causes his own population to fear in order for him to win an election. That's not what we want.
No.
We just want to be safe in our communities. We want our children to have a hope and a future. How can our children be hopeful if they're living in fear? That's not what we want. We want an economic policy that works for all of us. We want equal opportunity, which is what my father got when he came in 1963 with nothing but $1.75, and now here I sit, second in command in the former capital of the Confederacy. Things have changed since my father came in 1963. We ain't going to be back in chains, Mr. President.
So
stop it.
And it's a great American story, and I love your family's service too as Marines. That's the best. So again, one more time on the issue of Trump, because he is down by 1 point. I saw a poll last week. He's in Virginia. It's going to be a nail biter potentially. How much are you going to do to try and move the ball for him? Will you work for his reelection to get him over the edge?
Well, we're working now because we don't want Biden. We don't want Biden. We want to be respected overseas. We want our allies to respect it, and we want those who don't have good intentions for America to respect us.
Yeah.
And when Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan in the way that they did, all those Marines were killed, including 2 sailors, I believe, and 1 soldier, and left $20 billion worth of equipment, our uniforms that we saw the Taliban in, watching them driving in our Jeeps, our ammo, and the Communist Chinese Party, they moved right in, got all of those rare earth minerals that we left blood on the field for, where we as Marines, we fought twice to retake parts of Afghanistan. No. So something's got to give, and I think the American people are seeing it. I don't know if the polls will hold, but I do think the people want different, and we've just got to win in November. So I thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this and to say to our listeners, whatever color that God has made us, that we've just got to really consider who is better for us. And our economic policies are not working. They haven't worked. We're all feeling the pain.
We definitely are. Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears of the Commonwealth of Virginia, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you being with us, as always. All right, let's take Jeff in Stevens City, line 1. Jeff, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, how you doing, buddy? Great show.
Thank you, sir.
Winsome Sears is great. I love her. She lives near me, and she does a good job. You tried pinning her down on the Donald Trump thing, and she just wouldn't come around, man, you know?
Yeah, I think there's got to be something more behind the scenes that I'm not detecting. I don't know, maybe that we don't know about, but she did say on Neil Cavuto's show back in 2022 that it's time for the Republicans to move on. But look, Trump won, and he's doing great now. But her view is we just got to get rid of Biden. That seems to be the theme she's sticking with.
Yeah, I got that, and that was cool. She's a never Biden guy, but that's good.
Yeah, well,
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Jeff. On that never Biden front, some interesting data today. Did you know that the never Biden constituency is way bigger than the so-called never Trump constituency? A majority of swing state voters now declare they are never Biden. Under no circumstance would they ever vote for Biden. which is good news for America if it holds. The great one, Mark Levin, up next here on WMAL.